Today we are making really crispy egg foo young, which is, by all senses of the term, a true fusion dish and a marriage not only between American and Chinese cooking, but in a sense a lot of like global flavors. So today we're going to take some of these fusion techniques further to make it my favorite version possible, probably like nothing you've ever had. This is one of the best things we've ever done. Let's talk about omelet composition. What egg foo young is an omelet on the bottom that has a bunch of ingredients, usually meats and vegetables, and then there's a gravy on top. Those are our two components. First thing first, we have to talk about omelet filling, egg foo young filling. Today, and my suggestion is to use whatever leftovers of meats and vegetables that you have. For this recipe, we're asking for something like a 1/4 cup of each. Char siu today is our meat of choice, and these are some suspiciously perfectly cut leftover vegetable stir fry. I think today what we have is carrots, cabbage, and celery. Honestly, any vegetable that you have lying around works. The only additional ingredient after that is your shallot, and those are your fillings for this omelet. We just have to process everything. Because we're eating this dish with rice, we have to slice everything so that it's the same shape, so that it fries evenly and it all goes down easily too. First thing first is the scallions for the garnish. This goes over the top as a garnish, so we're gonna try to get it pretty and slice it on a bias. Egg foo young in Cantonese is foo yong dan, and foo yong is a type of flower, a hibiscus, sometimes called a cotton rose. And the idea is that this used to be a dynastic dish that moves through a couple of regions in China, including Yunnan, Zhejiang, and Guangzhou or Guangdong. And at the end of it, it ended up being a dynastic dish that was a show-off technique dish. So it most likely was a very, very fluffy egg white omelet that was just a showcase of the chef's technique and their manipulation of this egg texture. It gets a lot more interesting, however, because at some point, this egg foo young makes its way over to the US, probably via Southern Chinese immigrant chefs. And what you are ended up with is a product that looks a lot more like a Western-style omelet that has a brown gravy over the top. What's really actually good about it now is the crispy, crackly bits on the side. When you fry it a little bit almost over and you get those like nice brown bits, really delicious egg flavor. Shallots are next. Onions also work. We're going thin, but not too thin because you still want to be able to bite it. Most people nowadays associate with egg foo young dan, in China as a Cantonese dish. I think this omelet is more of a Cantonese-style omelet. And if you wanted to eat this in China, you'd often find it served over rice for lunchtime. The fillings don't really matter, but usually there's something ham or char siu like in the middle, like a robust, salty, delicious pork product with some julienne vegetables, basically. So that's that. And speaking of char siu, by the way, Cantonese barbecue. If you are getting this from a butcher and it's not just leftovers, my suggestion is to ask for bun fei sao, which is half fatty, half lean. Usually it refers to a specific cut of pork, which is near the butt, near the shoulder. This piece is a good example of that, bun fei sao. A little bit of fattiness, and then the lean pork over here. That way you have enough flavor in the fat, but then you also have a little bit of that meat. It's good balance. When you ask for bun fei sao, your barbecue guy is gonna pick through all the char siu he has and pick you a piece that is the appropriate ratio of lean to fatty. Egg foo young is made with chicken, beef, pork, shrimp is actually a great addition. Any leftover meats that you have are good. The most important thing for both your meat and your vegetables for egg foo young is that the filling needs to be cooked first. When we fry this egg, it's not going to have enough time to cook all of the insides, so just make sure that whatever you have fully cooked before it goes into the omelet. So the fillings are done. Now we just have to cut our main aromatic for our brown sauce, for our gravy, which is ginger. Ginger is something that we all love, but it's important in the Chinese culinary tradition to peel your ginger. The outside of the ginger, the skin, and the inside of the ginger, the flesh, are yin and yang. They're not really supposed to be cooked together. This is what I've been told. I think also, when you're peeling your ginger, you get rid of any impurities that you might not be able to get to even with washing. Fastest way to deal with ginger, in my opinion, is to cut or break off the knobby bits and maybe shave a little bit off with your knife. And then to deal with this, the best way to peel ginger is with a spoon. Y peelers or vegetable peelers have a hard time getting in through all the nooks and crannies. So even a dull spoon, all you have to do is scrape and the top will come off. In many metropolitan areas like the great city of New York, in Chinatown, there are different types of ginger that you can buy now. There's a saying in Cantonese, which is that the older the ginger, the spicier the ginger, which is true, especially because this idiom, the saying, is a way to describe old men, old people in particular. So, 薑越老越辣. 薑越老越辣 is the older the ginger, the spicier, and it's a personality trait. Now, ginger is a little bit fibrous, so the easiest way to deal with it, if you're using a cleaver, is to stand them up and then smash them down. If you smash your ginger against the grain, you can get them to flatten and basically pulverize. I like, for home cooking purposes, to smash them against the grain and then slice them up to the size that you need them to go. Why do we smash our ginger? We smash our ginger to break open those cell walls so we can extract flavor as quickly as possible. We're still going to slice it roughly just to make it a little bit easier to deal with. And that's ginger roughly, quickly dealt with. Next thing, we're going to build our brown sauce. Let's talk sauce. Brown sauce is the American term for this sauce. Obviously, you don't call it brown sauce in China, but it is the sauce that you'd find on beef and broccoli, for example, chicken and broccoli. This is also very similar to the sauce that you would put inside of a lo mein. We could sit here and talk about sauce all day because in most Chinese dishes, we don't have the concept of sauce. A lot of the times, what the liquid that you end up with is built off of the things that you cook inside of your pan. This is one of the exceptions to that rule. So when we're building this brown sauce, what we're aiming for is a flavorful, well-rounded, well-balanced sauce. The main ingredient, the main flavor is going to obviously be soy sauce. Now, this light soy sauce, a lot of people are deceived by the name soy sauce because they think that the word sauce means that this is ready to go as a finished product. Light soy sauce actually needs to be balanced a little bit with sugar, with other flavor profiles, a little bit more umaminess. So what's going into this sauce is going to be light soy sauce as a main source of sodium, a little bit of oyster sauce to give it a little bit more of a textured and well-rounded mouthfeel, a little bit of sugar to balance out the aggressive salt of the soy sauce and the oyster sauce, and finally a little bit of sesame oil for that nutty finish that is so prominent in so much of Chinese American cooking. Now let's actually cook the sauce. Saucepan, a little bit of oil on the bottom, about a tablespoon or so. Heat that up until it's shimmering, and we're going to activate our ginger, which is the only aromatics in this sauce today. We're keeping it relatively simple. Hot oil, ginger goes in. Just cooking it until you start to smell it and the aromatics are activated. Ginger is threatening to pick up a little bit of color, and that is when the chicken stock is going to go in. Most of the volume of the sauce is going to be stock, vegetable stock, all the works. We're making a lot of sauce today, actually. This is probably enough sauce for, I want to say, 3 or 4 portions of omelets. So if you're only cooking for one, this is going to be a lot. If you end up thickening the sauce will not last in the fridge. If you take this to the point before you thicken it, and you thicken it and you heat it up to order, you can make the sauce ahead of time. Ginger and chicken stock are coming to a boil. Now we're going to add our ingredients. Oyster sauce, this is the savoriness. This is for balanced, well-textured sauce. Light soy sauce, which is most of the flavor, actually. And then sugar to balance out the saltiness of the oyster and the soy sauce. Bring that in all together, give it a pinch of salt, and let that cook for a couple of minutes just for the flavors to come together. And the last step is going to be thickening it. Now, when it comes to thickening sauces, the Chinese tradition is oftentimes to use a starch of some sort, specifically a starch slurry. What we have here is cornstarch, which is the most commonly available starch in most of your kitchens, I can only imagine. But I will say that my preferred starch for Chinese cooking and Asian cooking in general is potato starch. So potato starch in Chinese is called super cornstarch. Cornstarch is dian fan or sheng fen. And potato starch is chaoji sheng fen, which is super cornstarch. Why is it super? Because it tends to thicken a little bit more quickly. It tends to produce sauces that are a little bit more clear, a little bit more glossy, a little bit more silky, and those sauces tend to hold a little bit longer than cornstarch. Now, a little bit of a tip with adding starch to your liquid is, first and foremost, you should always add your starch to water first, cold water. Mix it in, because if you just skip this step, your starch is going to clump once it hits hot liquid. The ratio generally is 1-to-1. So if you have a tablespoon of starch you're planning on using, it's a tablespoon of water. How much you add is going to depend on the amount of gelatin and the amount of thickening agents already in your stock itself, versus if you use water, for example, what type of oyster sauce you use, so on and so forth. So you need to build a bit of an intuition with regards to getting the perfect consistency with the sauce itself. One of the interesting things about oyster sauce is that it's very umami, it's very savory, but it's also quite balanced because there is a little bit of sweetness in there. Now let's get to thickening it. Number one, liquid. Your sauce needs to be boiling. Otherwise, starch molecules aren't going to be activated. We're going to pour a little bit, disperse it over the surface, mix, and wait for it to basically come back to a simmer, if not a boil, to make sure that the starch is fully activated. You want to make sure that it's at its full gelling power. Just be a little bit patient with it. Most of the time when we're thickening sauces in professional Chinese kitchens, master chefs will ask you to thicken them over the course of 3 intervals. There is a theory, first time it's for thickening, second time it's for gloss, I forget what it is specifically, but in my opinion, just knowing that you're going to split the addition 3 times every time means that you'll be a little bit more careful about the final product. So at this point, it's not coating the back of the spoon yet. We're going to add a little bit more. Why do we want this sauce thick? We want it thick because we're going to be eating this with rice, and you want that sauce not to run all over the plate. You want it to cling to the rice and obviously the omelet itself. You want it to coat the back of your spoon so that you can see, I mean, it's a pretty clear sauce, but that's what coating the back of the spoon means. Once that sauce is thickened, the last step, professional Chinese tip technique, is to add oil just a bit after you've thickened the sauce. What this is going to do is it's going to give it a little bit more shine. Any oil that is in there before you add the starch is going to get emulsified into the sauce, and this is just going to give it a little bit more gloss. Sesame oil today for a little bit of that nuttiness. I'm just going to mix that in, and the color is going to come out a lot shinier. Also, this means that we're not cooking all of the aromatics out of that sesame oil, so a little bit goes a long, long, long way. There you go. Beautiful, glossy, Cantonese style thickened sauce. Oyster and soy sauce. Next, the omelet itself, the fun part. Now it's time for the omelet, so let's build the egg batter first. First thing first, eggs, 3 of them. Pinch of white pepper for flavor, a little bit of salt for seasoning. A traditional egg foo young is cooked in a good amount of oil, oftentimes in the restaurant deep fried, for those crispy, craggly bits. The best parts of those crispy, craggly bits are because that egg is being fried at a high temperature and it activates and brings out all this delicious golden egg flavor. It's like the crispy bits of the side of your fried egg. This technique is borrowed from a Thai omelet technique, roughly pronounced kai jiao, which is honestly maybe one of my favorite meals in the world. It's a Thai-style, basically deep-fried omelet that's served oftentimes with a little bit of fish sauce on top of rice. It is so, so, so delicious. We're borrowing that egg frying technique plus the mix-ins for the egg foo young and the sauce of the egg foo young to create this extra crispy egg foo young. Now, one of the secrets, not always necessary, but really helps with this fry, is a couple drops of acid. Oftentimes in the form of lime juice, but in this case we have white vinegar lying around, so just a little bit of white vinegar. A little bit of acid will bring down the pH so that the protein inside of the egg denatures a little bit more quickly. What that means is you'll get crispier, cragglier bits of egg because the drop in of the egg will be a little bit thinner. This is the same technique that some Chinese chefs use for egg drop soup when they want a particularly scattered egg product. After this, all of our mix-ins. First, we have our shallot. We're going to put half of a shallot in. We have some bean sprouts lying around, so bean sprouts are great for texture. Our vegetables. We're aiming for roughly like a 1/4 cup of each, and then our diced protein. In this case, this is char siu. Mix it all together. Let's talk about deep frying this omelet. Now, a lot of people are nervous about deep frying their eggs because they think it's going to absorb all of that grease. My good friend Derek has done the tests. For a proper Thai-style omelet, if you cook it properly, it will absorb less oil. If you don't cook it properly, it'll absorb more oil. And by properly, I mean it needs to be cooked to completion. Deep frying in a wok saves you a little bit of oil because of the shape of the wok, so you don't actually have to give so much oil to fry the same amount. But you want at least an inch of oil inside of that wok. Now, in terms of temperature, there are a couple ways to tell whether your oil is hot enough. If it's smoking, you're definitely good to go. It's probably, if you're using a neutral oil like you're supposed to, at about 400 degrees Fahrenheit. Before we are ready to fry, make sure you have everything you need. You have your omelet, you have the chopsticks that you're going to use to put the filling in. You have a rack for when it's done. And then you have your spider for flipping and taking it out of the oil. Your deep frying, this is a relatively quick cook. You're going to be standing over it the whole time, so just make sure you have everything ready. Drop it close to the oil. Try to get all of the filling in first, and then drizzle the rest around for the extra craggly bits. You can move it around a little bit, get that oil and egg dispersed. You're deep frying an egg, right? So don't be shy about it. But make sure you just cook it to completion, because once you do, it's not going to be greasy. Been a little bit shy of a minute, and you can check the underside. It's already nice and brown. And then once you're ready, you're going to flip this. It doesn't matter if you mess it up, because the whole thing is about craggly business anyway. There we go. All right, just getting in here. Flip it one more time just to see the other side. See those crispy, craggly bits on the side? That's what you want. Don't afraid to really let it cook. The more you cook, the more moisture you're going to push out of this omelet, so the crispier it's going to get. It'll finish its cook as it cools. Now with deep frying, it's really important to let things cool, because you need the moisture to really escape. When you let it rest, you let the moisture that's inside of that product come out past the surface, outside of the omelet itself, so that it has time to stay crispy. So that the stuff that's over the top, the crispy bits, whatever little starch pieces are in there, all of that has time to breathe and then set hard and therefore become crispy. So this is a rice dish. Rice is the most important thing. As a bit of an ode to the shared Southern Chinese and Thai roots of this dish, it's going to be jasmine rice. And then omelet goes over the top. Eat it when it's nice and hot. Like, look at these crispy, craggly bits. Just maximized all the way on the side. That's so much delicious egg flavor. And the only thing to complement this is a little bit of sauce directly over the top. We can be generous with it. Make it a bit pretty. Scallions in the middle. There are also cooked onions inside, so a little bit of raw onion over the top. Just remind you that it can be nice and pretty. Cool. So good. It's just, I really think this is one of the best ways to cook eggs. Not to mention utilize your leftovers, but a little bit of a twist and embracing that fusion nature of this dish in the first place by borrowing techniques from Thai cooking makes a really, 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 really nice version. If you like this recipe, like, comment, and subscribe. You'll find the recipe on Food52 as well as in the description box below. But honestly, whatever we make next will not be good as this, so maybe just forget it all. This is one of the best things we've ever done.